There are women who walk into a room filled with people and yet feel as if no one really notices them. And you know what? They're not lonely because they're physically alone. They're lonely because they're surrounded by noise that can't understand their quiet. Today, let's talk about a woman who has no close friend. She isn't bitter. She's not heartless. She has just tasted the bitterness of fake smiles one too many times. Often, we think that a woman without friends must be proud or unkind. But what if she's simply careful? What if she's learned that not everyone who claps for you wants you to succeed? What if she's come to realize that silence is safer than betrayal? We live in a time where connections are many, but honesty is rare. Like comments, birthday messages, none of these can replace that one sincere moment when someone truly asks, "How are you really?" Let me share a short tale. In a quiet village, there was a well. People came from all directions to draw water. But one woman always came by herself. People whispered about her, called her odd. One day, a little girl asked her, "Ranty, why do you always come here alone?" The woman smiled and answered, "Because peace flows better when it isn't disturbed." You see, some women choose solitude not because they hate others, but because they're protecting the calm they work so hard to find. Quiet women are often misunderstood. But sometimes, the woman who says the least holds the deepest heart, the clearest mind, and the most sincere motives. There's something beautiful about a woman who enjoys her own company. She doesn't need gossip to feel part of something. She doesn't need drama to feel alive. She doesn't chase after people. And more than anything, she's stopped begging to be noticed in places where her soul goes unseen. She has cried in silence, eaten her meals alone, smiled to herself, and healed without help. She's discovered that the loudest cheer sometimes comes from inside. And when someone asks her, "Don't you feel lonely?" she smiles and answers, "Sometimes, but never enough to welcome back the wrong people." Being alone is not the same as being sad. That's something we often mix up, especially when we see a woman walking her path alone. We think if she isn't surrounded by people, if she isn't laughing loudly, chatting constantly, or posting happy pictures, something must be wrong. Maybe she's sad. Maybe she's been hurt. Maybe she's angry. But what if she's just wise? What if she's figured out something others haven't yet? That being by yourself can be deeply healing. There's a clear difference between loneliness and solitude. Loneliness is when you miss real connection. Solitude is when you've found connection with yourself. Just think about it. So many people are surrounded by others but still feel empty. They sit at crowded tables, attend every party, receive dozens of online wishes, but when the night is quiet and everyone's gone, they still crave someone who truly sees them. Now picture a woman who prefers silence over noise. She takes long walks alone. She treats herself to coffee, sits by the window reading a book, and feels full. Not because she dislikes others, but because she enjoys her own presence more. That's not sadness. That's strength. Let's talk about an everyday example. A woman named Arisha used to be the life of every group. Always texting, always out, always surrounded. But after a while, she began to feel exhausted. Her talks felt shallow. Her friends seemed more like competitors than supporters. When she opened up about her pain, they met her with silence. Or worse, they gossiped. She began to understand that she was giving pieces of herself just to keep connections going. So one day, she stopped. She didn't reply to every text. She stopped agreeing to every outing. At first, it felt strange. Her phone was quiet, her weekends were open. But soon, something peaceful arrived. She began reconnecting with herself. She started writing, meditating, and picking up hobbies she'd forgotten. She sat on her balcony sipping tea and felt at peace. No pressure to impress. No need to explain. Just stillness. She wasn't sad. She was free. People noticed her absence. Some thought she was going through something difficult. Others said she'd changed. But they didn't see the truth. Arisha hadn't vanished. She had simply returned to her own light. A place many avoid because it forces them to face themselves. Solitude gives a woman the space to hear her own thoughts instead of the world's opinions. It allows her to feel her own emotions, to sort through her memories, and to boldly dream of tomorrow. She learns she doesn't need someone to make her whole, because she never was broken to begin with. The world has taught women to be caregivers, helpers, listeners, and healers. Always giving, always there. But rarely told to give that same care to themselves. You know what's truly heartbreaking? Not the woman who sits quietly by herself, but the one who's always surrounded and still feels invisible. That's the kind of loneliness that eats away at someone slowly, and no one even notices. But the woman who accepts solitude learns a new kind of language. She learns to live to her own rhythm, to walk her own path. She laughs more freely, cries more honestly, and lives more bravely. She becomes careful with who she lets in. Not out of pride, but out of self-respect. Because once she finds inner peace, she guards it. She knows how priceless it is and won't hand it over easily. The world may always question a woman who chooses to walk alone. But if she walks with truth, with strength, and with her spirit in alignment, then let them wonder. Let them talk. Let them assume she owes no explanations, because her silence speaks louder than 100 empty talks. Being alone isn't a weakness. It's a sacred place. It's where a woman remembers her value, where she stops searching for love in empty places and starts pouring love into herself, where she understands that being alone doesn't mean she's lacking anything. It means she's present. Present in her heart, present in her soul, present in her life. So if you're that woman, sitting quietly while the world screams and rushes past you, remember this: you're not falling behind. You're not broken. You're not strange. You're simply ahead of your time. Because while others run after attention, you're building a quiet home inside yourself. And that, my friend, is not sadness. It is power in its truest, most graceful form. Not every friend is real. That's a truth many have learned the hard way, through the pain of betrayal, the silence during hard times, and the confusion of being in a crowd yet feeling utterly alone. There's a certain kind of painful beauty in finding out that some of the people you once laughed with, cried with, and even trusted with your deepest thoughts were never truly your friends. They were simply there, not committed. They were companions for a season, not protectors of your heart. One of the most humbling lessons in life is realizing that closeness doesn't always mean connection. Just because someone is often around doesn't mean they're really present for you. Some people stick by only out of ease, interest, or competition, not out of love. They appear when your skies are clear, but disappear when your world turns stormy. And that's when the truth cuts the deepest. In your darkest season, when you search for support and realize those who called themselves your ride or die never even showed up in the first place. Let's take a simple yet powerful everyday story. Picture a woman named Zoria. She's always been the one others counted on. Birthdays, breakups, long days. She's the person people call. Her phone rarely gets a rest. She's the listener, the helper, the one who puts everything aside just to comfort a friend. People describe her as strong, faithful, and giving. But what happens when the strong one breaks? One day, Zoria faced a storm in her life. Her business began to slip. She was emotionally worn out, mentally scattered, and spiritually empty. For the first time in ages, she needed someone to show up for her. She reached out, sent messages, made calls, but suddenly the responses were slower or didn't come at all. Replies like, "I've been really busy lately," or "Hope things get better soon," replaced the deep conversations she used to offer freely. One evening, sitting on her bed with her phone in her hand, Zoria faced a quiet but powerful realization. She had friends to laugh with, but not to rely on. Friends for happy days, not hard ones. That honest moment hit her like a silent wave. No loud drama. No arguments. Just a change in how she viewed people, and more importantly, how she saw herself. Sometimes people stay in your life, not because they love you, but because they love how you make them feel or what you do for them. And the moment you stop giving, they stop showing up. It stings deeply, but it also sharpens your vision. That's when true awareness begins. That's when a woman starts clearing her emotional space. She begins to pay attention, not just to what people say, but to what they carry in their spirit. She notices who checks in without needing a reason, who celebrates her wins without jealousy, who can sit quietly with her without expecting entertainment, who stays even when she has nothing left to give. A woman who understands that not all friendships are true ones becomes more thoughtful, more selective. She no longer holds on to people just because of shared history or repeated habits. She comes to know that spending time with someone doesn't always mean they've earned your trust. Knowing someone for 10 years doesn't mean they deserve your heart for 10 more. Long time doesn't always mean loyal love. But this awakening doesn't make her bitter. It makes her wiser. She no longer dreads releasing people from her life because she's seen that real friendship doesn't feel heavy. It feels like light. It doesn't take from you. It fills you up. It doesn't make you doubt your worth. It reminds you of it. We've been taught to collect friends like trophies, as though the number of people around us defines our value. But the real truth is that one real bond is far more precious than 100 shallow ones. One friend who walks with you through the storm is more valuable than a dozen who only show up when the sun is shining. There's a freeing kind of strength in walking away from relationships that only survive when you're useful. It creates room for honest friendships to grow. Ones built on depth, not drama, truth, not labels, soul, not social status. So if you're a woman who's realized that not everyone you called a friend was truly one, let that truth awaken you, not break you. Let it be the moment you stop chasing people and start protecting your peace. Let it be the reason you stop needing to prove yourself and start honoring your own heart. You are not hard to love. You are not too much. You were simply giving your heart to people who didn't know how to hold it gently. Now you know better. And when a woman knows better, she chooses better. She doesn't settle for halfway friendships or unsure loyalty. She waits. And when the right people come, those who love her with depth, in silence, in the messy seasons, she welcomes them with open arms but guarded gates. Because now she understands, not all friends are truly friends. And that's okay. Losing the fake ones isn't a loss. It's a step closer to what's real. She becomes her own truest companion. That's not loneliness. It's growth. It's the moment a woman stops hoping others will fix her feelings and begins to recognize that she already holds the strength within. It's not that she never liked being with others or didn't enjoy having friends. She did. But she reached a point where she saw something powerful. Relying too much on others for happiness, for peace, for confidence, is like building your house on a weak ground. One shake and it all falls. Imagine this played out in everyday life. Meet a woman named Santa. For years, she poured herself out for everyone. Her calendar was always packed. She showed up for every birthday, every breakup, every random get-together. Her energy was always focused outward, making sure others felt heard, seen, and valued. But while doing that, she forgot someone important. Herself. She didn't notice how worn out she was. She didn't see how her own reflection had become unfamiliar, how her laughter felt more like habit than happiness. And then came the quiet. She entered a time in her life that felt like a cold emotional season. The messages stopped. People got busy. Her heart felt heavy, but no one really asked how she was doing. At first, she panicked. She wondered if she had offended someone. She tried to reconnect, to keep things the same. But something inside her had shifted. The silence that once made her anxious began to feel calming. The alone time that once felt like punishment began to feel like rest. She began to spend time with herself. No phones. No distractions. Just her thoughts, her presence, and that quiet inner voice she had ignored for so long. She began writing again, something she had loved as a girl. She found her old sketchbook. And while drawing, she felt tears slide down her cheeks. Not from sadness, but from something deeper. It was like meeting an old friend. She was meeting herself again. Gradually, she began doing things alone. Morning walks, not for weight loss, but for air, for stillness. Coffee dates with herself, not to look busy, but to enjoy being alone. She stopped waiting for someone to confirm her worth, her beauty, or her choices. For the first time, she wasn't dressing up to impress. She wasn't talking to be liked. She wasn't pretending to belong. She was simply herself, and that felt powerful. People noticed. Some were puzzled. Some said she was pulling away. Others whispered that she was changing. But she didn't explain herself. She didn't have to. Because when a woman learns to become her own closest friend, the urge to explain her peace to others fades away. She no longer feels the need to be understood by everyone around her. What matters most is that she's at peace within. In those moments of self-connection, a woman begins to realize she doesn't have to plead for attention, run after affection, or struggle to be noticed. Her worth doesn't shrink just because someone else failed to recognize it. She no longer asks, "Why don't they treat me right?" but instead begins to ask, "Why did I accept less than I deserve?" That change, although subtle, is deeply powerful, and it transforms everything. You see, the world teaches women how to care for others, but it rarely teaches them how to care for themselves. So when a woman chooses to look inward, to face her pain instead of hiding from it, to begin healing herself without waiting for someone else to come rescue her, that's not weakness, that's wisdom. And as she draws closer to herself, she begins to see the difference between people who enjoy her company and those who love her true self. She starts to see through shallow friendships and treasures those rare souls who see her clearly even when she isn't trying to be seen. She no longer accepts being half loved, half heard, or half seen. Why? Because the friendship she has formed with herself has taught her how real love is supposed to feel. This kind of woman becomes magnetic, not because she's trying to impress anyone, but because self-respect has a quiet beauty. People are drawn to her stillness. They wonder why she doesn't react like she used to, why she walks away from drama without a word, why she protects her time like it's something precious. The reason is simple. When you become your own closest companion, you guard your peace like it's sacred, because you understand what it took to find it. She doesn't rely on constant praise anymore. Her value isn't measured by compliments, her relationship, status, or how many friends are around. She's not afraid to eat alone at a cafe, watch a movie by herself, or spend an evening in silence. Her own company is no longer something she avoids, it's something she welcomes. And maybe the most beautiful part of all, she becomes a better friend to others. When a woman truly learns to love herself, she no longer gives from a place of emptiness. She gives from overflow. She doesn't need people. She chooses them. And that one small shift changes the entire experience of relationships. So the next time you see a woman walking alone, with a gentle smile, sipping coffee at her favorite spot with a glow in her eyes, don't assume she's lonely. Maybe. Just maybe. She's enjoying the richest conversation she's ever had with the woman looking back at her in the mirror. Because once a woman becomes her own best friend, she discovers a kind of peace that no one else can give her, and no one else can take away. She begins to favor quality over numbers. It's not about how many people fill her life, but about how many truly understand her soul. In a world that's fixated on numbers, likes followers, online friends, a wise woman starts to see through the illusion. She comes to realize that 100 people cheering for you can still leave you feeling emptier than one person who simply sits beside you when your world is falling apart. This change doesn't happen quickly. It comes from life, from heartbreak, from disappointments, from fake friendships, from those heavy moments when everything collapses and you finally see who remains. A woman doesn't just decide one morning that she doesn't want lots of friends. That decision comes after years of giving her heart to people who only took from her, of sharing private thoughts that became stories for gossip, of offering love that was never fully received. Think about a woman named Hina. Hina was known by many. Outgoing, cheerful, the light of every gathering. Her phone never stopped lighting up. She had group chats for every corner of her life. Friends from work, from school, from the gym. On the outside, it seemed like she had everything. But inside, she often felt a quiet emptiness. She could make people laugh, but had no one she could cry with. She could share jokes, pictures and updates, but not her fears, her wounds, or her hopes. Every time she tried to open up, the topic changed. People were too busy, too distracted, or too focused on themselves. Then came the moment that tested her deeply. A painful loss shattered her world. In tears, she reached for her phone, hoping to find comfort in someone's voice. She called and called. No one picked up. A few sent brief messages. "I'm so sorry for your loss. Let me know if you need anything. But no one truly came. No one sat by her side. No one stayed. That night, Hina didn't just lose someone dear. She lost the illusion she'd been holding onto. This idea that being surrounded by people meant being supported by them. That night, she stopped chasing popularity and began choosing authenticity. Over time, her circle grew smaller, not because she was pushing people away, but because she had grown beyond needing constant noise. She didn't want to spend her life in endless chatter anymore. She craved depth, real conversations, honest hearts, and in the quiet that followed, she found a few, just a few. But those few were everything. There's a rare kind of joy in sitting across from someone who listens without judging, who doesn't envy your light or leave when darkness comes, who may not always have the right words, but refuses to walk away when the wrong things happen. That is true connection. And once a woman experiences that, she can never again settle for empty crowds that only echo. When a woman begins to value meaning over numbers, she also starts showing up differently. She no longer stretches herself too thin just to keep every relationship alive. She stops saying yes from guilt or fear of being left out. She doesn't chase conversation or beg for validation. She simply offers her time and energy with honesty, and only to those who honor it. And that's when the magic begins. Her life becomes lighter. She deals with less drama, less comparison, less pretending. She no longer tries to prove herself to everyone. Instead, she starts giving her heart to the ones who already see her clearly. Those rare souls who check on her, not just out of habit, but because they genuinely care. The friend who remembers her favorite song. The one who quietly prays for her. The one who doesn't need daily updates because they understand her spirit. She stops posting everything online, hoping to feel seen. She learns that the most meaningful memories happen in real life, in silence, in presence, not in the performance. Her attention shifts from wanting applause to cultivating purpose, from craving attention to creating intention. And here's the beautiful truth. When she stops trying to be everything for everyone, she becomes everything she needs for herself. The fewer people she tries to please, the more peaceful her heart becomes. Her emotional space becomes sacred. Her time becomes precious. Her words carry meaning. She doesn't gossip to fit in. She speaks to build up. Others notice the change. Some say she's different. And they're right, she is. She's no longer always available for every gathering, every chat, every obligation, but the ones she chooses to stay close with, they feel it. They feel heard, seen, loved. Because when a woman stops pouring herself everywhere, she finally has enough to offer where it counts. Quality over quantity. It's not just about friendships. It becomes her entire outlook. She applies it to everything. What she reads, what she watches, what she gives her energy to. She becomes thoughtful, intentional, and more content. So next time you see a woman sitting quietly, perhaps beside just one friend, or even by herself, don't assume she's lonely. She might just be free. Free from the pressure to show up everywhere. Free from the fear of being left out. Free because she's discovered a deeper truth. 5 real minutes with someone who genuinely cares is worth more than hours with people who don't. And in that freedom, she begins to bloom, not through how many connections she has, but through the strength of her peace.